When I opened the apartment door, the first thing I saw was my engagement ring, dead center on the kitchen counter, right where Dale always dropped his keys like the world would arrange itself around him. The diamond caught the late afternoon light and threw it back at me, bright, clean, cheerful, like it didn't know it was evidence now. Next to it, sweating onto the marble, was a family-sized tub of generic vanilla ice cream. Not even the good kind. Off-brand, thin plastic, already soft around the edges, starting to slump and drip down the sides in slow, humiliating streaks. And beside both of them was a note, in my handwriting. This is the only vanilla you'll be eating from now on. XOXO. My own loopy cursive stared back at me like it belonged to a stranger who had stolen my pen. For a second, I couldn't make my lungs work. I stood there with my keys still in my hand, watching the ice cream melt like time was melting with it, like my life was turning into a mess in real time and I couldn't do anything but witness it. Then I noticed what the apartment sounded like. Nothing. No dishwasher, no air purifier, no Dale humming to himself in the shower, no familiar creak from the living room floor when you stepped the wrong way. The echo was wrong. The air felt thin, like it didn't expect me to stay. Half the furniture was gone. My succulent shelf, my favorite chair, the one I'd reupholstered myself with a stupid floral print because it made me feel like an adult who had her life together. My bookshelf, the photo wall that used to be us, grinning at friends' weddings, holding tacos on the pier, sunburned on hikes, drunk in a photo booth, making the kind of faces that meant we're safe with each other. 12 hours earlier, this had been our home. Now it looked like someone had broken in and stolen only the parts of me. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me, louder than usual, and the sound bounced off empty corners. I stared at the indentation in the carpet where my chair used to sit, the blank spot on the wall where our engagement photos had hung until yesterday. My phone buzzed in my back pocket so hard I flinched. Dale. Baby, you know how much I love you. I'm at a loss right now. Please answer. The sweetness of it made my teeth hurt. I stared at his name, then at the ring on the counter, then at the note that said XOXO in my handwriting. Like this was all some joke we were playing. 12 hours since he'd left for work. 12 hours since I'd kissed him goodbye with the same mouth he'd been describing as too needy to his ex. 12 hours since I'd decided I was done. Standing there, I felt split down the middle. One part of me was ice calm, cataloging what was missing and what was already handled. My name off the lease, the mover's receipt folded into my purse, my passport and birth certificate tucked into my backpack, like I was running from a flood. The other part of me was screaming, if you just disappear, are you any better than him? Was vanishing without explanation its own kind of cruelty? My thumb hovered over his text while my brain composed a dozen messages at once. Check your email. Ask Kelsey what you two bonded over. Read your own words about my gross, freaky nipple, and then tell me you love me. Instead, I slipped my ring into my pocket like I was pocketing proof, not jewelry. Then I silenced my phone completely. No vibrate, no banner, nothing. I knew the next messages wouldn't be as gentle as that first one. I knew baby please always turned into something uglier. Once the person realized begging wasn't working, I took one last look at the melting vanilla, the note, the naked wall. Then I stepped back into the hallway, pulled the door shut, and walked away from the life I was supposed to marry into. The night before felt like a movie I'd watched instead of something I'd lived. I was on Jake's couch with a blanket over my legs and my laptop open on the coffee table, like a wound you couldn't stop touching. The TV was on mute, looping a cooking show. Everyone smiled while they chopped onions. The room smelled like garlic and cheap craft beer and the detergent Jake always used that made everything smell clean and safe. My emails with Dale's ex were pulled up on the screen. Read this, I whispered, shoving the laptop toward Jake like I couldn't hold it anymore without my hands shaking apart. Jake scrolled. His jaw tightened slowly the way it did when he got quiet angry instead of loud angry. He wrote this last week? He asked. Yeah, I said. The morning he brought me coffee in bed and called me beautiful girl. Jake swallowed. He told Kelsey your scar was disgusting, he read, voice flat. He called you damaged. He said, he blinked once like his eyes wanted to refuse. He said your gross, freaky nipple is a turnoff. I couldn't breathe again. The words didn't get less disgusting the second time. They got more real. And then he kissed you goodbye, Jake said quietly, and went to work like nothing. I'd found the emails by accident that afternoon. Dale had left his laptop open on our dining table, logged into his email like he didn't believe consequences were real. I'd been looking for the caterer's invoice. I had typed invoice in the search bar and the thread popped up. Kelsey, his ex. A name I hadn't heard out loud in months. A name he brought up sometimes like a joke. She was crazy, you know how she is. And I'd laughed politely because I'd wanted to be the cool fiancé, the secure fiancé. The fiancé who didn't need to ask questions because she trusted him. Curiosity turned into nausea in seconds as I read weeks of messages. He complained about my body, about my scar from the shrapnel that had taken a piece of my breast when I was 21, the kind of injury people want to treat like an inspirational poster instead of a loss, about how he missed real boobs, about how he hated feeling like a saint for putting up with a damaged girl. He had written it casually, like he was talking about bad weather. And the worst part was how practiced he was at being tender to my face. The night before, he'd had his hand under my shirt on the couch, tracing the scar with his fingertips like it was private and sacred. He'd whispered, I love you. I love all of you. He'd kissed my shoulder. He'd looked at me like I was the only thing in the room worth keeping. Then, in daylight, he'd typed to his ex, that he had to psych himself up to touch me, like loving me was something he had to endure. Mike, Jake's boyfriend, had been leaning in the doorway listening without interrupting, which was how you knew he was furious. When Jake read the freaky nipple line out loud, Mike slammed his beer down so hard foam spilled. "We're getting you out tonight," he said. "No questions, no hesitation. You are not sleeping next to that guy one more night." "I can't just leave," I protested weakly, even though my chest already knew it was leaving. "The lease, the wedding, the vendors, the—" "Watch me," Mike cut in, already pulling out his phone. He opened a notes app and started typing like he was planning a heist and not my escape. Clothes, documents, toiletries, work laptop, anything sentimental, anything you paid for. "Couch," he said, ticking them off. "We rent a truck at dawn. You stay here tonight." I watched him type and it hit me, sudden and humiliating. Other people saw this clearly. Other people didn't have the fog of love in their eye. My phone buzzed then. "Dale. How's Jake? I'll be home a little late. Big client dinner. Love you." My throat felt raw. I typed, "Jake had a fight with Mike. I'm staying over to keep him company." The lie felt heavy on my fingers, but I hit send. I could have told him. I knew. I could have screenshotted his own words back to him. I could have started a war in our text thread right then. Instead, I chose this, to lie about a fight that didn't exist, so I could quietly dismantle my life with him. A second later, he replied, "I'm glad I have such a good girl like you." The phrase made my stomach twist. Good girl. Like I was a dog. Like obedience was love. I typed, "Remember that forever," then deleted it. Wrote, "No worries," deleted that too. Finally, I sent a thumbs up because it was the most honest thing I had left in me. Later, while Mike booked the truck and Jake sent his manager a vague emergency text, I paced circles in their little kitchen with the dishwasher humming. "Is it wrong to leave without confronting him?" I asked. Like I needed permission to do the obvious. Shouldn't I tell him I read the emails, that I know? Jake leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "If you tell him now, what happens?" he asked. "He'll—" my voice caught. "He'll cry. He'll say it was venting. He'll say I'm sensitive. He'll say it didn't mean anything. And then?" Jake pushed gently. "And then I'll comfort him," I said, disgusted with myself. "I'll end up managing his feelings about hurting me." Mike didn't look up from his phone. "Safety matters more than closure," he said. "You already know who he is?" That sentence landed like a brick in a life raft at the same time. In between logistics, they cracked dark jokes about leaving him a tub of vanilla ice cream. It started as a joke, something petty and stupid to make us laugh in the middle of all that pain. But the idea took root in my brain and wouldn't let go. "I'm not going to smash his Xbox," I said eventually, staring at my phone on the counter like it could bite. "I'm not pouring bleach on his clothes. I'm just going to erase myself. Quietly." Jake nodded, eyes soft. "We'll help you disappear," he said. "And if you ever want to go nuclear later, you keep the receipts." I went to sleep on their couch with a borrowed t-shirt and a knot in my stomach. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the phrase "circus freak" glowing on a screen, even though I hadn't gotten to that part yet. My brain was already writing future insults for him because it knew how men like Dale moved once they stopped being adored. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. It was still dark when we climbed into the rented truck. Plastic seats cold through my sweatpants. My heart hammered the whole drive to the apartment. The city felt half awake. Street sweepers, joggers, the occasional car with headlights like eyes. "What if he's still home?" I whispered as we pulled up. "He said client dinner," Jake said. "He barely gets out of bed on time on a normal day." We parked in the alley behind the building and carried empty boxes up the back stairs like we were robbing our own place. My hands shook so badly I fumbled the keys twice before the lock gave. The apartment smelled like his cologne and stale coffee. His shoes were by the door. His jacket was flung over the chair. Normal domestic chaos. It made me want to scream because it meant he was still living in the story where he was the good guy. "Okay," Jake said, clapping his hands once, gentle but firm. "Bedroom first. Documents, clothes, anything irreplaceable. Mike, kitchen. Only her stuff." In the bedroom, I moved like a machine. My side of the closet was easy to identify. Floral dresses, soft sweaters, scar-bearing tank tops I'd started wearing again because Dale had told me he loved that I was confident. Confident. I yanked hangers down in clumps, tossing clothes onto the bed. Drawer slam, drawer slam. Each sound felt like a door closing on a version of me who'd believed him. His suits hung untouched on the other side. Crisp shirts. A row of ties lined up like they were proud of themselves. They swayed slightly as I brushed past, like ghosts lined up for inspection. On the dresser, my jewelry box went into a box. The framed photo of us on the pier. I hesitated, then took the frame but slid the photo out and left it face down. Let him decide what to do with that. In the top drawer under my socks was the envelope with my passport and birth certificate. I grabbed it and shoved it into my backpack, so hard the zipper snagged. My hand stilled for half a second on the scar under my left breast. Crescent-shaped, pale, raised. Not ugly to me anymore, not shameful. But suddenly I remembered every time Dale had insisted on turning the lights off before sex, calling it more romantic. I'd believed him. I hated him for that. "Elle," Mike's voice came from the balcony. "Can you come here?" He was on the phone with my property manager, pacing. "She's here with me," he said into the receiver. "Yes, she wants her name off the lease today. No, she's not comfortable discussing it with her fiancé present." He put it on speaker. The manager's voice was brisk, practiced. "You'll need to come in this morning," she said. We can't remove you without your signature. After that, the remaining responsibility is on Dale. My fingers tightened around a box of photos. That's fine, I said. I'll be there. In the hallway, our neighbor stepped out balancing a toddler on her hip. She glanced at the boxes stacked near my door. You guys moving already? She asked. Didn't you just sign the lease like 6 months ago? Just me, I managed, stretching my mouth into something that wasn't quite a smile. Change of plans. Her eyes flicked to my bare ring finger, then back to my face. She opened her mouth like she wanted to ask more, then thought better of it. If you need anything, she said softly. Thanks, I whispered and ducked back inside like I'd been caught stealing my own life. In the living room, the couch sat like a throne in the middle of the chaos. My couch. I'd saved for months to buy it. I ran my hand along the armrest, remembering all the nights Dale and I curled up on it, his fingers under my shirt tracing my scar like it was a romantic quirk. If we take this, I said out loud, he can't easily get a roommate. Jake shrugged, hefting one end. You paid for it, and he can figure it out with his big boy job. A petty part of me savored that. Another part whispered I was making his life harder than it had to be. But then I remembered the email where he called me damaged goods and said he deserved a medal for loving me. Let him struggle. We loaded the last box as the sun cleared the buildings, turning the parking lot pale gold. I paused at the open truck door and looked up at the windows of what had been our place. Curtains drawn. His car spot still empty. How long do you think before he notices? I asked. Jake slid the truck door shut with a metallic thud. Depends how hungover he is, he said. But by tonight, he'll know. Back at Jake and Mike's, their garage turned into a temporary storage unit. Boxes stacked, labeled in Sharpie, kitchen, books, clothes. Seeing my entire life reduced to cardboard made me dizzy. The couch, my couch, now sat wedged along one wall like it had always been theirs. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead and tried for a grin. I keep thinking about that vanilla ice cream thing, he said. I can't stop. I surprised myself by laughing. It came out sharp, almost angry. The biggest, cheapest vanilla you can find? Yeah, he said. Field trip? We drove to the grocery store like 3 idiots on a mission, fluorescent lights buzzing above us. I stood in front of the wall of ice cream and dragged my fingers over flavors I used to let myself want. Mint chip, Rocky Road, cookie dough. Then I saw it. A ridiculous family-sized tub of off-brand vanilla. Ugly label. Thin plastic. The kind that always tastes faintly like freezer burn. This one, I said. It was so cold it burned my palms. Back at the apartment, the air felt different now that most of my things were gone. Emptier. Colder. Like it was already forgetting my name. I set the tub on the counter where I knew he'd see it first. Condensation formed instantly, beads rolling down the sides like sweat. I took my engagement ring out of my pocket. The diamond sparkled cheerfully, oblivious. I placed it beside the tub, aligning it like I was staging a product photo. On a sticky note, I wrote slowly, my hand steadier than it had any right to be. I know vanilla isn't your favorite flavor, but this is the only vanilla you'll be eating from now on. XOXO. I considered writing. I read your emails. I even wrote IR and stopped. If I told him exactly what I knew, he'd have a script ready. He'd deny, spin, minimize, apologize like he was applying a bandage to his own reputation. He'd try to make me explain why I was hurt until I was exhausted enough to accept a version of reality where he was still a good man who made a mistake. If I left it vague, his own paranoia could do the work. Maybe he'd wonder which message did it, which insult, which phrase. Maybe he'd hear his own words in his head the way I had. Before I left, I snapped a photo of the setup. Not to post, not to threaten, just to anchor myself later when my brain tried to rewrite this as an overreaction. Ring. Melting vanilla. Note in my handwriting. Then I locked the door behind me and walked out knowing that if I ever came back, it would be as a stranger. That night on Jake's couch, the adrenaline crash hit. My body felt like wet cement. The TV was on again, some sitcom laugh track, bouncing off the walls, but I wasn't watching. My phone lit up. Dale. What did I do? Please just talk to me? I stared at it. For a second, the urge to respond was so strong it felt physical. To demand answers. To spit his own insults back. To force him to say the truth out loud. I'm not answering, I said, more to myself than anyone. I turned the phone face down and slid it away like it was hot. You sure? Jake asked softly from the armchair. If I open that door even a crack, I said, he'll shove his way through. He'll cry and I'll end up comforting him for making me hate my own body. Text came faster. We are getting married. I thought you cared about me. Baby, this isn't funny. Where are you? Then minutes later, I'm freaking out. Just tell me you're okay. The tone shifted so fast it made my head spin. I guess you're cold-hearted. I should have known you'd pull something like this. Jake leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled. Love bombing and guilt tripping at the same time, he murmured. I blocked him on Instagram, Facebook, everything. Unfriended. Removed from close friends. Then I set an email filter. Anything from his address went straight into a hidden folder. I'm leaving text open, I admitted. Just once. I want to see what he really is when he's not being loved. It didn't take long. Near midnight. Good luck finding a guy who will love a F. King circus freak bitch. It hit like a punch to the sternum. I actually pressed my palm there like I could hold myself together with pressure. Jake's hand landed on my shoulder. Give it to me, he said quietly. I handed him the phone without resisting. He read the text. His jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. Then he hit block. There, he said, setting it face down. He doesn't get to speak to you again. I pulled the blanket over my head like a kid. The room smelled like their laundry detergent and the faint sweetness of the vanilla ice cream we'd left behind in that other life. Tomorrow I'd have to tell my mother there was no wedding. For now, I let myself cry into the pillow, mourning a version of my future that died without ever making it to the aisle. The next afternoon, I sat at my mom's kitchen table with a mug of tea I wasn't drinking. The kitchen looked exactly like it had when I was 16. Sunflower curtains, fridge covered in magnets, and my little sister's old report cards, like time refused to move. Okay, Mom said gently, sitting across from me. Start from the beginning. I slid my phone across the table. Read these, I said. It's easier than saying it out loud. She put on her reading glasses and scrolled through the screenshots, the email thread, Dale's little jokes disguised as honesty, the final text. I watched her face change, confusion, shock, then something sharp and protective. He called you... Her voice went flat. He called your body damaged goods. I nodded, staring at the steam rising from my tea, because if I looked at her, I'd start sobbing again. My younger sister Bree hovered in the doorway, arms crossed. Send it to his mom, she said immediately. Or his job, or both. Bree? Mom snapped, but there wasn't much heat behind it. Why not? Bree shot back. He humiliated her. He deserves it back. Mom took a deep breath and set the phone down carefully, like it could break. Don't start a war you can't finish, she said to me. Drama keeps you tied to him. I thought about the note, the ring, the tub of vanilla, the emails sitting in my screenshots folder like dynamite. I don't know what's healthy anymore, I admitted. Is protecting my peace just letting him get away with it? Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Protecting your peace is choosing what keeps you safest, she said, not what punishes him most. After I left, I sat in my car in the driveway and called Dr. Harris. Her receptionist must have heard something in my voice because she squeezed me into a cancellation that week. We'll sort out billing later, she said. Just come in. On the drive back to Jake's, I opened my notes app and dictated a list like I was planning a work project instead of dismantling an engagement. Venue, caterer, photographer, DJ, florist, travel agency, registry, bridesmaids' dresses. Each word felt like a stone dropping into water. That night, alone in Jake's guest room, I scrolled through our engagement photos. Dale on one knee at sunset, me crying mascara streaked, holding up the ring like I'd won something. His arm around me at the engagement party, my scarf visible above my dress neckline, and I remembered how proud I'd been to show it. My finger hovered over delete all. Instead, I locked my phone and set it face down. I wasn't ready to erase the proof of how happy I'd been, not yet. Dr. Harris's office smelled faintly of lavender and neutral carpet, soft, quiet. A room designed to hold what you couldn't carry alone. She knew my body's story better than almost anyone. She'd been there in my early 20s after the accident, when I still spoke about my scar, like it was a punishment instead of survival. So, she said gently after I gave her the stripped-down version, he mocked your scar to his ex. He insulted your body, and you left without telling him you saw any of it. I nodded, picking at a loose thread on the couch. I feel like I'm going crazy, I admitted, because up until this, there weren't obvious red flags. He was kind. He showed up. He came to doctor appointments. He told me I was beautiful. Did he ever make small comments? She asked. Jokes that hurt a little? I thought back. The time he'd said, "You're lucky I'm not shallow like some guys." The way he'd always turned the lights off before we had sex, saying it was more romantic. The tiny tension in his face the first time he saw my scar. Nothing I clocked, I said. Just normal insecurity stuff, I thought. Dr. Harris nodded. Some people are very good at compartmentalizing, she said. They can be tender in one room and cruel in another. That doesn't mean you missed obvious signs. It means he practiced. I swallowed. I left without confronting him, I said. Part of me feels guilty, like I denied him a chance to apologize. What if I overreacted? She tilted her head. If you confronted him, what were you hoping would happen? I don't know, I whispered. An apology, an explanation, something that made it hurt less. And do you think an apology would make those words disappear? She asked quietly. Would you trust him again with your most vulnerable parts? I pictured the email where he called me a saint's burden. No, I said, voice cracking. I could never know what he really thinks. Then leaving protected you from being talked out of your reality, she said. Closure doesn't require giving him a stage. She suggested I write a letter to Dale I'd never send. Put everything in it, she said. Rage, grief, questions. Then we'll decide what you want to do with it. Burn it with my reception dress, I said, half joking. Her smile was small and sad. That's certainly symbolic. As I left, my phone buzzed. A text from a mutual friend. Hey, Dale says you bailed on the wedding. What happened? My stomach dropped. The story was already leaking. I slid my phone into my bag without answering. I wasn't ready to explain myself in a group chat, but I knew something important now. If I didn't control the narrative, he would. 2 days later, I met Mark and Sarah at a crowded cafe. Clattering dishes, espresso machine hissing. Normal life happening 3 feet away from the worst week of mine. Mark stirred his coffee like he was trying to slow time. We're not here to take sides, he said. We just want to understand. Dale is telling people, you got cold feet. I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I unlocked my phone and slid it across the table. Read, I said. They did. Mark's face drained of color as he scrolled. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she breathed. He told us you were overwhelmed, Mark said weakly. He didn't mention the part where he called my body disgusting to his ex? I asked. voice too calm. Yeah, funny how that didn't make the cut. We sat in silence. Then I said quietly, I decided something. Anyone who asks gets the truth. No sugarcoating. No, we grew apart. I'm done protecting him. Sarah nodded slowly. If people ask me, I'll tell them I saw the messages, she said. I'm not letting him make you the villain. That afternoon became a careful, targeted truth-telling. Not a public post, not a mass blast, just bridesmaids, close friends, anyone who had spent money or emotions on our wedding. I didn't do it to punish him. I did it because I refused to be rewritten. The next day, I sat in my car outside the wedding venue and called the coordinator. Hi, this is Elle, I said when she answered. Our wedding is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. I need to cancel. Her voice softened immediately. I'm so sorry, she said. Let me pull up your contract. We went through the math, deposits lost, partial refunds. She waived part of the cancellation fee in light of the circumstances, and I made a note to send her a thank you card someday when the word wedding didn't make me nauseous. Next was the travel agency. We have a honeymoon booked under Dale and Elle, I said. I need to cancel his ticket. I'd like to keep mine if possible. The agent explained I could get a partial refund on his ticket, not all of it. Do you still want to go? She asked. Like she couldn't imagine anyone choosing that. I thought of the beaches I'd pinned on Pinterest, the snorkeling excursion Dale had talked me into, and I'd secretly dreaded because of how exposed my scar would be. Yes, I said, surprising myself. I'm going solo. When I stepped out into the sunlight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You didn't have to ruin his reputation. No name, no context. I screenshotted it and blocked the number. If someone wanted to defend a man who mocked his fiance's body, that was their choice. I wasn't auditioning for their approval. That evening in Jake and Mike's backyard, the sky was turning pink as I hung my short reception dress from a low branch. White, delicate, completely wrong for my life now. I held the letter I'd written to Dale. Pages filled front and back with cramped handwriting. Everything I'd never say to his face because I refused to hand him another opportunity to twist my pain into a debate. I hate that you made me feel like surviving made me unlovable, I read aloud. I hate that you turned my scar into a joke. I hate that you kissed me after writing those emails like I was stupid. Jake and Mike sat in lawn chairs nearby, quiet. Jake held his phone up recording, but he'd promised it was just for me. So you don't forget you did this, he'd said. I knelt and placed the letter under the hem of the dress. The paper looked small and fragile on the dry grass. Then I sprayed a line of lighter fluid along the bottom. When I struck the match, my hands were strangely steady. Flames caught the paper first, curling the edges, then climbed the fabric. The dress darkened, then bloomed into orange. The fire devoured lace and tulle like it was hungry. It was mesmerizing. It was horrifying. Jake handed me a marshmallow on a stick like we were at a campfire. Might as well multitask, he said gently. I laughed and cried at the same time, tears streaking down my face as I roasted the marshmallow beside the burning symbol of my almost wedding. Halfway through, my phone rang. Caller ID, Linda, Dale's mom. I stepped away from the fire, the crackling fading behind me. Hello? I said cautiously. Elle? Linda's voice trembled. Honey, what happened? Dale is sobbing. He says you destroyed his life, that you left without a word. For years, Linda had treated me like a daughter. Stockings at Christmas, birthday texts, little check-ins when Dale worked late. Part of me wanted to protect her from the ugliness. Another part thought, she deserves to know who her son is. I left because I read his emails, I said slowly. The ones he sent to Kelsey. What emails? She asked, confusion thick. I took a deep breath. I'm going to read you one, I said. Word for word. My hands shook as I pulled up the screenshot, but my voice stayed steady as I read his own sentences back to his mother. Damaged goods. Saint for putting up with me. Gross, freaky nipple. On the other end of the line, Linda gasped. He wrote that? She whispered, like it physically hurt. Yes, I said, multiple times, while he was planning a wedding with me. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant roar of the fire. Then Linda's voice changed, lower, sharper. Forward me everything, she said. If he can talk about you like that, I need to rethink who my son is. I had expected defensiveness, excuses, anger directed at me. Instead, she sounded devastated and furious. Are you sure? I asked. I'm sure, she said. And Elle, I am so sorry. The next morning, Linda emailed me. I confronted him, she wrote. He said you photoshopped the emails, so I told him to open his account in front of me. She described how he stalled, how he tried to talk around it, how he finally pulled up his sent folder and the truth sat there, undeniable, how his face went pale when she started reading his own words out loud. I called it cowardly and cruel, she wrote. He yelled that I was taking your side, that you were overreacting, then he stormed out. At the bottom, she added, he learned some of that language from his father. That doesn't excuse it. I'm sorry. I felt a strange pinch in my chest. Pity for the little boy Dale might have been. Then I pictured my 21-year-old self in the hospital, groggy and terrified, fingers fumbling at my chest, realizing what had been taken. I remembered how hard I'd fought to reclaim my body, how much trust it took to let someone see my scar without flinching. Childhood wounds didn't excuse what he'd done with my trust. Jake glanced over my shoulder. You should block her too, he said softly. You don't owe his family anything. I know, I said, but she's helping with logistics, gifts, returns, and she believes me. So I kept one email thread open with Linda. We coordinated returning wedding gifts that had arrived. She offered to pick up anything still at her house. I told her to donate whatever she could. A few days later, a mutual friend messaged. Dale says you weaponized his mom against him, and that you stole his apartment by taking your name off the lease. I stared at it, heat rising up my neck. Weaponized. Like truth was a weapon and lies were just his side. My thumbs itched to type a long response, to attach every screenshot and make the whole group chat choke on it. Instead, I opened Facebook and wrote one sentence, choosing myself over someone who mocked my trauma behind my back. If you're confused, ask me privately. I have the receipts. Then I logged off. People could decide what kind of person they wanted to be. I was done performing my pain for public consumption. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease on a small, sunlit one-bedroom across town. Top floor, tiny balcony, a sliver of ocean visible between two buildings like a promise. The walls were soft white, blank page white. Jake and Mike helped me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs, making exaggerated groaning noises like it was their job to turn heavy things into comedy. Mike dropped my couch into the living room and wiped his forehead. New ritual, he said. Whenever you move, we burn something symbolic. Please, no. I laughed, wiping my face. I'm trying to reduce fire in my life. In my bedroom, I hung my dresses in the closet. I ran my fingers over the ones that bared my scar. For the first time in a long time, instead of feeling self-conscious, I felt defiant. These clothes had never been the problem. A week later, an unknown number called 3 times in an hour. Curiosity got me. I answered and heard his voice. "Elle?" Dale sounded wrecked, hoarse like he'd been crying. "Please don't hang up. Just talk to me." Every muscle in my body screamed to end the call. A small, pathetic part of me still wanted an apology. A clean sentence. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that. I didn't give him even a syllable. I hit end call. He left a voicemail immediately. The icon appeared, pulsing like a heartbeat. I pressed play and held the phone away from my ear, listening only long enough to hear the first line. "No one will ever love you like I did," he sobbed. That was enough. I dragged the voicemail to trash without listening to the rest. Sitting on my new couch, sunlight streaming in, I admitted something to myself that felt like swallowing glass. I had wanted him to understand, but his understanding wasn't the thing that would heal me. His remorse wasn't currency my self-worth was measured in. I blocked the number. Then I opened my email from the travel agency and booked the snorkeling excursion. The thought of being in Clearwater in a swimsuit with my scar exposed made my stomach twist, but it also felt like taking something back. That night, I fell asleep on my couch with the balcony door cracked open. Ocean hush drifting in, steady and indifferent. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Proud of you," it read. "And for the record, you're the least vanilla person I know." I laughed out loud in the dark, the sound surprising me with how alive it was. A month later, I sat in Dr. Harris's office again. Posture looser, breathing easier. "The pain is still there," I told her, "but it's smaller. It used to feel like drowning every day. Now it's like I get hit by a wave and then I can stand again." She smiled softly. "That's progress." I showed her a photo from my trip. Me in a bright red swimsuit on a beach in another country, grinning at the camera. Scar visible, shoulders back, eyes bright. "You look happy," she said. I said. "I went snorkeling. No one cared about my chest. They cared that I kept squealing every time a fish swam near my face." Later that week, Jake dragged me to a Halloween party because he refused to let me become a person who only existed inside pain. I showed up as Edward Scissorhands, pale makeup, wild hair, taped together scissors on gloves. Jake went as Kim in a blonde wig and a thrift store prom dress, and looked disturbingly accurate. At one point, a stranger in a pirate costume bumped into me and then did a double take. "Your costume is incredible," she said, smiling. Her eyes flicked briefly to my chest, where my neckline showed a hint of scar. "And your scar? Badass." For a second, my old reflex kicked in, the urge to explain, to make it smaller, to turn it into a funny story so nobody felt uncomfortable. Instead, I just said, "Thanks," and meant it. A few days after Halloween, I took my unworn wedding gown, the big traditional one in a garment bag in the back of my closet, and brought it to a charity drive. The volunteer ran her hand over the fabric, eyes soft. "Somebody's going to feel like a princess in this," she said. I pictured a stranger walking down an aisle somewhere with 0 baggage attached to that dress. No emails, no vanilla ice cream, just joy. I liked that. That night, I sat on my balcony with a mug of tea, watching the sunset turn the ocean orange. Kids laughed on the street below. Somewhere a dog barked like it had an opinion. My scar caught the last light of day in the scoop neck of my t-shirt. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like damaged goods. I didn't feel like a tragedy. I didn't feel like a body that had to be tolerated. I just felt like me. And that, quiet, uncinematic, stubborn, felt like the beginning of a life that belonged to me again.